Welcome, all you wonderful dissidents. I'd figure I'd make a quick little video regarding this David Depape and maybe shed a little bit of light on who he actually was and what he actually stood for instead of um, what the media and our elected Democratic politicians are quickly trying to spin him as, which is a right wing conservative, extremist, conspiracy theorist, lunatic. Basically, well, it doesn't take much to be a conspiracy theorist, as we all know. All you have to do is question the narrative and doubt what you're being told and not buy things just on face value, and that makes you a conspiracy theorist. But so the bar to be a conspiracy theorist these days is very low, very low. But let's go ahead and get into it and see what we see. I thought I'd start with. I've been kind of digging around on the internet a little bit, and I figure I'd start with just a couple just quick examples. So we have the Insider here, and their headline for their little news story is Paul Pelosi suspected attacker David Depape had hazy political ties and fell down the rabbit hole of theories about COVID-19, the global elite, and election fraud. Reports say. So once again, I guess that somehow makes him a right-wing conspiracy theorist and extremist, and all that goes along with that, which is a giant, hazy, nebulous net that they throw on basically anybody who questions their power grabs. Um, so he's a 42-year-old man from Berkeley, California, as I'm sure you've all heard. Um, Basically, everybody that knew the guy reports on the guy. Yeah, he's a lunatic. He kind of, all over the place, mentally ill, not all there is what seems to be somewhat of a consensus. But he was a progressive. The man lived in a hippie house with gay flags, Black Lives Matter posters, and I mean, he made hemp jewelry. Um, and he was apparently a nudist rights activist or something, and considered himself a professional nudist. I don't know what that pays in who's hiring, but apparently, he was a professional nudist rights activist, whatever that is. Only in San Francisco can apparently that get you anywhere. So they're moving quickly to try to seize the narrative and ignoring a lot of the very suspect and questionable parts of this. And of course, our Mockingbird media has no interest in delving into it and actually looking into what happened, why it happened, what the truth is. Which is more and more appearing to be some kind of sex orgy uh, deal gone wrong. Um, they want us to believe that the man broke in and assaulted Paul Pelosi while screaming, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" There's some reports that he had zip ties or whatever, but there is reportedly a third person that was on the scene that answered the door when the cops arrived. Um, I haven't been able to find anything on who that person is and why they aren't actually disclosing who that is. So I want to pull this up and show you. Let me move my ugly mug out of the way. We'll just put me over here. And so I wanted to show you guys kind of like just, all right, so I did a search for David DePape's ties to the right. And what pops up is, I mean, 4.2 million results, but like the LA Times, Pelosi attack suspect David DePape shared conspiracy theories. If you click on this story and go into it, it's basically the conspiracy theories tend to be right wing um, um, conspiracies that are things that they label to be right wing. And like here's Bloomberg, which a lot of people that don't care for their own mental health go to for their news. But Paul Pelosi's alleged attacker has links to the far right blog and whatever. Now, if let's see, if we, what does this say? So, David Depape, who police say attacked House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's husband in San Francisco early Friday morning, has been linked to personal blogs that railed against the government, technology giants, and espoused far-right conspiracy theories. The last time I checked, isn't Antifa and a left-leaning organization that rails against the government? Isn't Black Lives Matter a left-leaning organization that rails against the government? There's a whole sect of left-leaning organizations, these communist and socialist organizations that are exclusively on the left, that their whole thing is to tear down our government, to attack our government. As for technology giants, I mean, yeah, that is a right-wing viewpoint, that a lot of these technology giants have grown out of hand and out of control, and that they need to be reined in and broken up. But it's not exclusive to the right. So apparently, on a website registered to David Depape, posts some from recently as this week took aim at immigrants, climate hysteria, trannies, and promoted pedogate. Apparently from a man who was living in a hippie commune with a gay pride flag outside. So the long debunked conspiracy theory about prominent Democrats being involved in the child sex trafficking, I don't know if it's long debunked. I know that it's widely ignored. This is what the gas chamber doors at Auschwitz look like, he wrote in one post. So feminists are always talking about how they want equality, another post read. So apparently these if you look here, they're out of context. Like literally, if you write the word apparently pedogate or climate hysteria, they'll clip these single words and post them and say he talked about this subject, and they want you to infer that he spoke about it in a negative way. I don't know if he spoke about it in a negative way or a positive way. I have no interest in going and actually looking at his post, because I have no faith that he wrote them or that they aren't in some way doctored or played with. But so as you see, some of the major media outlets are moving towards obviously painting him as a right-wing extremist, and that we should just go ahead and buy that. I'd like to go ahead and play this video. I'll pause it as I go and make commentary. So let's get it started.
In the wake of breaking news with little details, it was only a matter of hours before the Democrats' Mockingbird media had begun to politicize and twist the narrative of the attack regarding Paul Pelosi.
Story tonight, new warning from law enforcement of a heightened threat to the midterm elections and the safety of elected leaders.
Investigators say Depape had planned to tie up Paul Pelosi and wait for the speaker to return home. Mr. Pelosi was taken to the hospital. Representative Pelosi's office tells us he underwent a successful surgery.
Don't you love the manipulative background, like ominous music that they're putting in here? You're supposed to be just giving us the facts. That's the only thing you're supposed to be doing, but instead we get the pre-charged ominous music in the background automatically. As soon as you hear that stuff overlaid over what's supposed to be just a factual, here's the facts of the case video, you got to pull it into question. They're trying to manipulate your emotions. Music is a very powerful tool.
To repair a skull fracture and serious injuries to his right arm and hands.
Tonight's bulletin from the FBI warns of a heightened threat fueled by a rise in domestic violence extremism driven by ideological grievances. Potential targets include candidates running for public office, elected officials, election workers, and others. The FBI warns the threat will continue even after Election Day.
Clinging to the far-right January 6th boogeyman myth in order to desperately forward a campaign of stochastic terrorism.
We have to understand that, this attack was most likely.
All right, I want to go into that stochastic terrorism real quick. That's a new one that they pulled out of their back pocket, and basically, it's just your words incite violence. Therefore, the possibility of violence through your words makes you a terrorist. That's basically the layman's or the simple man's breakdown of what they are trying to turn stochastic terrorism into. If they could turn basically your words into terrorism, that will open the door through their Patriot Act and whatever other means they have of shutting down free speech to curb free speech and quell it.
Done because of that rhetoric being spread. Like, that's my prediction, is that we're going to find out that this was someone with very far right motivations, and someone who follows people like Tucker Carlson, like Ben Shapiro, like.
And there she is, right there. We are going to find out that he has ties to far right extremism. Yeah, because they're manufacturing that. They're manufacturing the story. They're already setting the base up, the stage up, whatever, and they're going to build on that. And so she already knows what it is. She's projecting exactly what their plan is and what they're going to do.
Like Matt Walsh, that's my prediction here.
And Tucker Carlson has one of the largest platforms in this country that spreads his white nationalist message to millions and millions of impressionable viewers every day. You know, the right wing wants you to believe that public schools are an indoctrination center for communist theory. I wish they were, but
obviously they're not. We only have all these young kids growing up hating the country, and embracing communist mentality and becoming far left activists and radicals, but it's not because of our school system.
Actually, people are not learning such things in school.
As the clock runs out on the 2022 election, an outcome which could not only bring a response to the corporocratic neo-Marxist cancer festering in the American body politic, but also result in prosecution for a host of Democrats that had avoided scrutiny, including the President of the United States. The October surprise was imminent.
It's reports that the same chant was used by this guy they have in custody that was used on January 6th. The chant was, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" This is despicable. There's no place in America.
Look at this angry, decrepit old potato. Where's Nancy's the chant. We're supposed to sit here and just gasp and almost faint, Where's Nancy is supposedly the chant of the right, When me and all my far-right extremist friends get together, that's how we identify each other. We immediately ask, where's Nancy?
There's too much violence, political violence, too much hatred, too much vitriol. And what makes us think the one party can talk about stolen elections, COVID being a hoax, there's all a bunch of lies, and it not affect people who may not be so well balanced? What makes us think that it's not going to corrode the political climate?
The alleged attacker, David Depape, a Canadian illegal immigrant, had spent his time in Berkeley, California, making hemp jewelry and contributing to Bay Area nudist activism at a residence replete with a rainbow flag and a Black Lives Matter sign. However, they dared to deny the implausible narrative of 9/11, not exactly the far-right extremist.
Look at all those far-right extremists. Typical. My God, you could tell them on sight. They're so obvious. Jeez.
Nazis they would have us believe Depape was a product of. According to KTVU, Depape had supposedly had with him a manifesto that contained anti-government COVID beliefs and a list of other politicians he planned to target. Additionally, the media had and
apparently carried this in just his underwear, because the reports are that the man was in his underwear. And so I guess he just tucked it on in the back. What else are we supposed to think?
immediately derided Depape's online writings detailing COVID vaccine danger, the Great Reset, and the epidemic of pedophile normalization as crazed conspiracy nonsense, just buzzwords to be feared.
The problem is people keep egging these people on. There are people on the television across the street from us that egg these people on, talking about cabals and stuff and people secretly running the world. And this guy doesn't like women either. So that's happening right now. And then on top of it, you...
Just going to throw that in there. This guy doesn't like women either. I mean, apparently he does have a taste for the men, if at least the old ones, if he's over at Paul Pelosi's house at 2 a.m. in the morning, carrying his manifesto in his undies and his skibs. And, yeah, so...
You have political figures. You have the previous president of the United States, posting about QAnon on his social media platforms. Which is just about this same cabal that this guy's talking about. So, look, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day because right now there are people advocating for these conspiracy theories out there. So, of course, people who can't, who don't know this is a game to these politicians are going to take it out on real people.
Oddly, Depape hadn't posted anything online for 15 years until reappearing in August of 2022, just months before a forthcoming October surprise. But the real questions, per usual, open up gaping holes in the Pelosi-Depape.
Now, the conspiracy theorist in me, my right-wing heart, would say, the man hasn't been on social media for that long, and then all of a sudden, right before some crazy shit pops off, he gets on his social media accounts and starts posting things that would apparently conveniently fit the narrative. Even though he lives the life of an extreme leftist, he's going to get online and post things that are considered right-wing conspiracies, even though I'm not buying into that. I'm just saying that's what they're framing this as these are exclusively right-wing conspiracy theories. None of that adds up. It's almost like you're pre-setting up the stage for this show, this October show.
Narrative. For instance, how and why does a man wearing underwear carry a manifesto with him? And what about the possible depravity of Pelosi's alcoholic husband? Was Depape there for another reason? Why did Pelosi tell dispatchers Depape was a friend?
I have a 14-hour copy. RP stated that there's a male in the home and that he's going to wait for his wife. RP stated that he doesn't know who the male is, but he advised that his name is David and that he is a friend. RP sounded somewhat confused.
Questions that come to mind after others in the California Democratic Party within the circles of the Pelosis have revealed their true colors.
There are at least 2 counts of providing methamphetamine to a victim that resulted in death, 4 additional counts of providing methamphetamine, 1 count of using his West Los Angeles apartment as a drug lair, and 2 counts of paying for interstate travel for the purpose of prostitution. All of these are significant charges. He's been found guilty in all of them. There are maximum sentencing. It is likely that 66-year-old Ed Buck will spend the rest of his life in a federal prison.
Anyone would assume that at the very least, Nancy Pelosi's multi-million-dollar home in crime-riddled San Francisco would be outfitted with an equally expensive government-funded security system to protect.
I don't know if you caught that. Right there. It says, all right, so this is Harmeet Kate Dillon. My firm served a lawsuit against Paul Pelosi one time in San Francisco after attempting to serve at other residences, Napa, Georgetown. They weren't home, but staff were, and multiple law enforcement officers were on the perimeter. Break-in is odd given the level of security. So this is what I've been saying. This is the home of the third person in line to the presidency. And we're expected that it's just like there's no security. There's no ring fencing of protection. There's staff. There's security. This is what I'm saying. So where were these people when all this happened? We're supposed to believe that something changed, that in this political climate and environment that there's less security, or were they pulled off the residence so that this can happen? It doesn't make any sense.
expensive government-funded security system to protect the third in line to the presidency and her expensive ice cream freezer? And why would police allow Depape to continue assaulting Paul Pelosi after they arrived on scene? Furthermore, why was Depape injured? Details that could certainly clear some things.
Now that's the first I'm hearing. I have not heard that Paul Depape was injured. I mean, he could have been. I mean, if you're assailing somebody, you can injure yourself too, especially if you're just wildly flailing away. So it's not that that's not possible, but there's just so much in this that doesn't make sense.
Up, but continue to remain a mystery. Of course, we have been here 1,000 times before. The left despises questions because the truth is lurking, and there is nothing more frightening for those invested in lies than the emergence of the truth. John Bound reporting.
All right, so I think that's a pretty concise video. So, another thing, he's a Canadian illegal immigrant who's apparently spent his whole life in our country. Like, how is that? That shouldn't even be possible. So he's an illegal immigrant, who's supposedly on the web railing against immigrants. He lives in a home of what the neighbors in the neighborhood label as a hippie commune with gay pride flags sitting outside, but yet he's anti-tranny, anti-homosexual. He also has the whole Black Lives Matter thing. I've never met a conservative yet that supports the Black Lives Matter movement. I've met plenty of conservatives who believe black lives themselves matter. In fact, that is, pretty much a standby of any Christian right-wing conservative person, is that black lives matter. But the movement itself, a lot of us seen that for the grift it was in the very beginning. Even before the actual fraud, tax evasion, and theft came in, we just seen it as the Marxist socialist movement that it was, mainly out of their own self-identification. So it's just none of this adds up. What they're trying to spoon feed you doesn't in any way, the pieces don't fit. So this isn't a hard one, guys. This isn't a hard one. Like, it's obvious. Either there was some kind of weird sex games going on at the Pelosi residence while Nancy was away, or something more sinister. I don't know. And it's really on all of us to kind of suss it out, ignore what they're trying to feed us, and actually look for the facts and try to place it together. If something doesn't make sense, it usually in real life, it's the easiest explanations that are the facts. Anything else is life isn't that complicated. Just look for the simplicity. That's the end of the video, you unwoke savage bastards and bastettes. If you like the video, give me a like, maybe a sub, and I'd appreciate it. Until then, peace.